Hello everyone, my name is Aubrey and today I'm going to be doing my top 10 books in series of 2020. Okay, hi, this is future present Aubrey here, and I just wanted to apologize for this video coming out so late. I filmed this video back in January, but I had like a big work project thrown at me by my boss. There were a couple of weeks when I was just working absolutely nonstop. I have not had time to film, I have not had time to edit, so that's where I've been, if you've been wondering, and that's why this video is coming out to you so late. I can't believe it's March already, like what? So yeah, just wanted to explain, and I will be popping up in the video a little bit later. I got new shelves, so that's fun, and that's been a recent exciting development. Anyway, enjoy the video. 2020 was an interesting year. I think we can all say that. It was an interesting reading year. You know, I think I'll say that it was a decent reading year for me, considering the fact that there were several months in the middle of the year that I did not read at all. I'd say from like March to August, like the beginning of August, I didn't read a thing. I did not read a thing. I was playing Animal Crossing. I was trying to distract myself. You know, I'm just the kind of person who can't read when there are other things going on. I got sick over the summer, not with COVID, just like with some digestive stuff, and I didn't feel well for like a long time, and I didn't feel like reading. January and February were really good reading months, and August, September, and October were really good reading months, and then November and December not so much. So it's just kind of been all over the place, but you know what? It wasn't actually that bad of a reading year. I have a strange, eclectic little stack of books here to talk about. I have a cup of coffee to give me some energy, and we're just gonna get right into it. So the first series that I want to talk about is actually my honorable mention, and that is the Lunar Chronicles series by Miss Marissa Meyer. I did not finish this series this year. I read books 1, 2, and 3, and the reason this is an honorable mention and it didn't sort of make the list is mostly because I think this series is pretty forgettable, and that sounds really bad, but I don't think I mean it in a bad or a mean way. It's just I had a lot of fun when I was reading it. This first book totally like got me out of my reading slump. This was like one of the first books that I picked up when I felt like reading again, and I read 85% of this in one sitting, which, you know, doesn't usually happen for me. I have ADHD, so like that, you know, that like never happens unless a book is just really engrossing. Yeah, I think this series is a lot of fun. I had a lot of fun while I was reading the books, but you know, once I put them down, I kind of just immediately forgot about them. When I was making my list of top 10 series that I wanted to get to in 2021, I like completely forgot I was even reading this. I have 2 more books to go. I have Fairest and Winter, and then I have like a few of the short stories left in the Stars Above collection. So yeah, I do plan to finish this, but you know, I just don't know if it's gonna like sit in my feelings for very long. But you know, that said, it is a fun series. If you haven't read it, I still definitely recommend it, especially if you want something that is easy and digestible that you can really just fly through. These are kind of perfect. They all feel very cinematic. I don't know, like each book felt like it really could be a very epic CGI'd movie. I think her story structure is really tight. I think the characters are a lot of fun. Each book follows a different character while still following characters from like the previous books. So, you know, this first book is Cinder and Cinder's story, and then the next book is Scarlet, and we're following Little Red Riding Hood Scarlet, but then we're also still following Cinder, and then in the third book we pick up a new character, and so we're following her plus Scarlet plus Cinder and a few other characters, right? So like each book just kind of builds. And yeah, the romances are fun, the fairy tale aspect is fun. This series is very, very popular, so I'm just kind of assuming that you at least know what it's about, but it's a sci-fi fairy tale retelling series. In this first book, Cinder is a cyborg, and instead of, losing her slipper at the ball, she like loses her foot. It's good, it's like she had a great idea, Marissa Meyer, and she ran with it. And yeah, okay, I've rambled too long about this, but it's good. If you haven't picked it up, I would still recommend it. It does read on the like younger YA side, which again, not a bad thing. Just know that going into it, especially if you are older like I am going into this. I'm in my very late 20s. So yeah, the Lunar Chronicles. Coming in at number 10, we have Gone Girl by Gillian Flynn. And I debated a while about even putting this on the list because, now that I've had some distance from it, I'm not even sure that I necessarily liked this book. Down to its core, it's really about like two very unlikable people. I'm not sure I liked how the book ended. Like, I just don't sort of know how to feel about this book as a whole. That being said, I absolutely couldn't put this down. I listened to this on audio, and generally speaking, I'm just the kind of person who can kind of set a book down whenever. But with this, I was trying to find like excuses to keep listening to this audiobook. So I usually listen to audiobooks when I go for a walk or when I'm doing dishes or when I'm like doing something. I don't usually just like sit down and listen to an audiobook. Do you know what I mean? I feel like nobody does that. So I was just trying to like find things to do so that I could keep listening to the audiobook. I'd be like, I'll like go do the dishes right now, or I will take a longer walk than usual, or like, I'm gonna go fold the laundry because I want to keep listening to this because I was just dying to know what was gonna happen. And I thought Gillian Flynn just did such a good job of creating that tension and creating that very kind of feeling of dread, and like you have to know what's gonna happen, and you don't even know what's gonna happen. Like I felt like this book was very unpredictable. Like I just had no idea where certain things were going or how things were gonna get tied up. Like it was a wild ride. And I think it gets points, like a lot of points, for just being really, really unputdownable. At least for me. Like I was just completely hooked. And like I said, that does not always happen to me. It doesn't even often happen to me. So I am not going to give like any kind of synopsis for this because I think that if you've come this far and you don't know anything about this, miraculously, I really didn't going into it. I think that's kind of the best approach, right? Like it's a domestic thriller, and I think that's all you should know. If you haven't read it, if you like thrillers, highly recommend, and also highly recommend the audiobook. I thought that the actors who did both of the two characters just like did an amazing job. Number 9 on my list is actually a novella. It's the original by Brandon Sanderson and Mary Robinette Kowal. But I thought that this was just a great little novella. It's about a woman who wakes up in this world where people can kind of be replicated, and she wakes up and finds out that she is one of these replicas, and she has to go and find her original and kill her original because her original has done something very bad. Like they've broken the law, and if this like replica person can kill their original, then they get to take their place. And it's just, oh man, it was really good. It was just like a wild ride. I think that this is exclusively an audiobook, at least currently. Could be wrong about that. When it came out, I think it was exclusively an audiobook. I think as of now it still is. I don't know if there are plans to put it in an ebook format or anything like that. But yeah, I just thought it was really great. I thought the execution animation was really nice. They had music and sound effects, which can sometimes be really distracting and not done well, but I thought in this one particularly it was done very well. I thought that the woman who narrates it did an excellent job. I thought that the writing itself was very inviting, and I really liked how in the head of the character that we're following we get so much of her internal dialogue and her feelings, and just kind of uncovering secrets about city and society that like she didn't know. And yeah, it was just, I mean, it was really great. Yeah, I don't have that much else to say about it, but I'd say if you are a Brandon Sanderson fan, you should definitely check it out. If you are a sci-fi fan, I would definitely check it out. Coming in at number 8, we have The Girl with All the Gifts by M.R. Carey. This is a horror post-apocalyptic zombie novel. Hi, future Aubrey, hopping in again to say that I did not explain this well, like at all the first time. So I just wanted to come in here and say a bit more about this book because I did really enjoy it, and I just didn't do it justice whatsoever in the first take. So The Girl with All the Gifts is a post-apocalyptic dystopian world. It takes place on kind of an army base where they are keeping all of these zombie-like children. So they look like children, they act like children for the most part, they're intelligent, they seem to have empathy, they're curious, you know, they are children, but they still have the zombie impulses to eat flesh. And so, like I said, it's taking place on this army base, and basically they are running all of these tests on these children because we don't know where they came from, like how they came to be. They just keep being like found out in the wild, and so they capture them and bring them back to the army base to do tests on them because maybe these children are the key to the cure. And so we're following one little zombie girl in particular named Melanie, and her whole life and her whole experience is just totally weird. She doesn't remember her early life very much, like most children don't. So she doesn't know where she came from. All that she's ever really known has been this base and this life. She has a cell that she lives in. She's like strapped into this thing every day and wheeled to her classroom, where then she is taught lessons basically to gauge how like intelligent these children are, how gifted they are, you know, are they like people or aren't they type thing. She develops this fondness for a certain teacher because this particular teacher is like the only one that seems to empathize with them and think that they're human. Everyone else seems to just treat them like scary little monsters, which, you know, they kind of are. Something happens in the book where a group of people are forced to abandon the army base, and so we're following Melanie and her teacher. We're following, I think, like the commander of the army base. I forgot what his title was, but he does not believe that Melanie is a person. He sees her as like a monster, an abomination. And then amongst the group is also a doctor who's been trying to find the cure, and so she sees Melanie as just like her test subject, something to be used for the good of science and all. And so you have this group and they're trying to get to a safe place basically. I just found like all the character dynamics in this to be so interesting because obviously everyone's kind of at odds with everyone else. The teacher is trying to defend Melanie and keep her safe, and obviously Melanie is trying to keep herself safe, but she also, you know, kind of has this like crush on her teacher, and so she's like trying to protect her teacher. It is just, I really enjoyed it, and I enjoyed all of the character dynamics. So yeah, I couldn't recommend this more highly, especially if you like zombie novels or you like horror. I just thought this was really great. So yeah, I just, you know, I wanted to pop in and sort of clarify why I liked this book so much. I hope you will give it a chance because I really loved it. Mostly I just found this very readable. Like I was flipping pages, I was excited to read it. There are a lot of very tense moments in this. I really loved the ending. Yeah, it was just, I don't know, it was just good. I think if you like apocalyptic, I can never say that. Post-apocalyptic books. This is like a definite read. If you like zombie novels, I think that this takes that trope and does something really interesting with it. You know, I think this could also be for dystopian lovers, sci-fi lovers. I mean, definitely if you are squeamish, I would stay away from this because there are some like grosser scenes, but they weren't that bad. And I don't know, I really liked it. Number 7, we have Dark Matter by Blake Crouch. I read this earlier in the year, I think in February or so. I also read Recursion this year. They're both by Blake Crouch, but I definitely liked Dark Matter more. I just thought that it was a lot more fun. How do I describe this without giving too much away? This is a book about a man who gets taken away from his family, he gets taken away from his reality, and he wakes up in a world where he could have been something, you know, great career-wise if he had sacrificed those family things, you know, his wife and his kid. And like, so going into this, it's like you think you know kind of what's gonna happen or like what the lesson is gonna be, because like you've seen this kind of story before, right? This like, you know, be careful what you wish for. Like he could have been this like incredible physicist, I think. Is he into physics? Sorry, it's been a little while since I read it, but he, you know, he could have been this like impressive scientific person, and instead he chose his now wife and to have a kid, and he is like a lowly professor at a college and whatever, and he's sort of given this chance to like be that impressive person. And I think what's interesting, and I'm about to go into some sort of mild spoilers, so if you don't want to know anything about this, you may want to skip ahead. But like the really interesting thing about this is that from the get-go, he like doesn't want that life. Like he doesn't even try for like half a second make that work. It's like he wakes up in this alternate reality, and then like right away he's like, I want to go home. Like I want to get back to my family. And the whole book is him trying to get back to his family, right? It's like you'd think that the story would be like he wakes up in this other reality and he like lives this life for a little while, and then the whole lesson at the end is that family is everything or whatever, right? Like he has that's the journey. Yeah, that's like not what this book is. He like never considers staying. He tries to get home. And so what happens from there is just wild. I feel like this book just hit a point maybe towards the middle where I was just like, oh my god, and we just went in this completely bizarre and very, very fun direction. So yeah, I really, really enjoyed this. I will say that Blake Crouch does not write women well. I have read now Dark Matter, Recursion, and I read his Wayward Pine trilogy. And like all of these books I think are very fun, and they have interesting premises, and they're page-turning like sci-fi thrillers almost. Yeah, Mr. Crouch does not know how to write women. We have 2 female characters in this book, and they both are only there to like serve the plot and to serve the main character. There's a female character who shows up. She literally her only purpose, she shows up, she saves him from a situation, she like goes on this adventure with him, and it's clear that the only reason she's there from a writing perspective is so that our main character like has someone to talk to, because, you know, writing advice that you hear very often is that you never want to have your characters alone. Like you always need to have another character there for them to talk to, right? Because otherwise they're just like talking to themselves, and that isn't very interesting for the reader. So it's like clearly the only reason this other female character is there is so our main character has another person to talk to while they're going on this adventure. And then she just like exits the story. Like I laughed. She just like hops off like towards the end. And again, I'm not going to spoil it, but like she's just like, okay, like cool, see ya. I'm gonna go like do my own thing now. And then he is like left to finish out his story, and it just like, yeah, it's not good. But that being said, the story is very entertaining and it is clever. I mean, it's really clever. There's like a twist at the end that is really smart and just interesting and fun. So yeah, I totally recommend this book if you like sci-fi, especially if you're into like the whole sci-fi thriller genre, which I am super into. So yeah, dark matter. Okay, coming in at number 6 is such a funny one for me, and that is The Final Empire by Brandon Sanderson. The reason this is funny, and I've talked about this a little bit before on my channel, but this was a reread for me, and it's interesting because the first time I ever read this, I didn't like it. I don't know. Everyone talks about the series, everybody talks about how amazing and epic and excellent it is, and I guess I just went in with ludicrous expectations. I don't know what happened, but I was very disappointed with it. I didn't think it was that good. I didn't think it was that well written. I didn't connect with the characters. I don't know, I just had so many problems with it. But it's been a few years since then, and I am now on a mission to finish the trilogy, and so I felt like I needed to go back and reread this. And I think that there is something to be said for returning to something that you didn't like because you had certain expectations, because sometimes you can then go back and appreciate something for what it is rather than being disappointed for what it wasn't. You know what I mean? So I reread this. I still think the writing is not great, but I think that Brandon Sanderson is an excellent storyteller. I think that he crafted this book so well. Just the foreshadowing and the little details and nuggets that he puts in that then pay off later are so well done. And it makes me very excited for the third book in the trilogy, because I just feel like it's gonna have really good payoff based on this first book and based on other things that I've read by him. Yeah, this made the list this time. I did enjoy it much better. I think I could just kind of appreciate the characters more, and just his plotting and his world building and his magic systems. I think there is just a lot of potential here. Which probably sounds ridiculous considering who Brandon Sanderson is in the fantasy world right now, but I haven't read that much by him, so I'm still kind of new to him. So yeah, The Final Empire, this is a dystopian fantasy. It's about a world with an all-powerful ruler, but the ruler is not a good guy. There's all of this class favoritism and an entire impoverished, almost slave-like race called the Ska. And so this first book is about trying to overthrow this final empire. And yeah, it was really good. Actually, I think that the balance between the action scenes and the not action scenes were really well done. So yeah, I think if you can look past the writing style, there is a really good story here. It's just the writing, man, so distracting. But, this was only his second book, so I have hopes that he improves from here. And yeah, I am excited to get to the second and third book soon. Okay, coming in at number 5, I have The Long Walk by Stephen King, originally published as Richard Bachman. This is one of the Bachman books. If you don't know, for a little while in Stephen King's career, the guy is crazy prolific. He can't be stopped. He writes so much, and he was writing so many books that his publishers were basically dude, we can't publish any more of your books. In a year, you're gonna saturate your own market. And so Stephen King was okay, well, what if I publish under a pen name? And so he started publishing books under the pen name of Richard Bachman, and I think he put out somewhere between 6 to 8. I could look this up, I'm not going to, but he published several books under the Richard Bachman name, and then somebody discovered the similarities between the writing styles, and they called him out on it, and he was outed, and that's the story. Anyway, this is The Long Walk. It's a dystopian world where, kind of like the Hunger Games, there is this annual long walk, and they somehow get all of these teenagers to participate, and if you win the long walk, if you were the last one standing, you basically get to have one wish granted. You can just kind of have anything that you want within reason. It's not magical. It's just kind of you could ask for anything and the government would give it to you. But of course, the twist is that if you stop walking for, I think it's up to 5 seconds, you get shot and you die. So This is like such a Stephen King concept. I don't even understand. Like, you'd think that a book about a bunch of boys walking would not be a good read, right? Because like they're literally just walking the whole time. Like nothing else happens. They just walk. But it's like, oh God, it's so readable. I don't know how he did it, but it's so readable. It is so disturbing. It is so scary. This is just like the most excruciating book. The psychological stress and downfall of all of our characters is just so real. I feel like Stephen King so perfectly understands people, and he knows like who we are underneath. And yeah, I don't know, I just thought this was really great. I think this is one that is going to stick with me for a long time. This is one that I read like early in the year, and I have just continued to think about it. It's one of those books that just like doesn't have a satisfying ending because it can't. But yeah, I mean, there is just this like slow descent into madness that like all of the characters go through because you can't sleep. They give you like a certain amount of food and water every day, and you have to just like conserve that. Other people are like getting shot behind you and ahead of you. Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's not a fun book to read, but it was very good. Yeah, I don't know. Definitely, if you are a Stephen King fan, I highly recommend this. If you like horror, I think this is pretty good. I think this is really good. I mean, it doesn't have like, you know, any big bads or like scary demons or anything like that. It's just this like excruciating, terrifying situation, right? Because you're just sitting there like, why did you even sign up for this? Like, why did you even want this? And I kind of wish that there had been a bit more world building about this society. There are like some hints to what is going on, but it's never sort of fully explored. And I wish we got a little bit more of that, but you know, maybe it was just better left up to the imagination as to why these boys would even sign up to do something like this in order to hopefully get this crazy reward, right? Because obviously only one of them can. And like, what makes you think that it would be you? Anyway, yeah, I've said it before, but I think Stephen King writes boys really well. Like, he just really understands, you know, what I imagine it's like to be, you know, like a 14-year-old boy. He gets it and he writes it really well. Okay, number 4 on my list is probably a bit of an outlier, but it is Fiber Fueled by Will Bulsiewicz. And probably any other year this book would not have made this list. I mean, I did really enjoy it, but like I said at the beginning of the video, I got sick this year. I had like a really bad case of food poisoning, and actually I kind of had like 2 bad cases of food poisoning sort of in a row, or just like very close together, and I got really sick, and I was sick for a really long time with just like a bunch of very weird GI symptoms that nobody could kind of figure out. I had a bunch of tests done, I had an endoscopy, nobody could figure it out. We still don't really know what was wrong, but I read this book, and I think that what this doctor talks about was really helpful to me. So he is a gastroenterologist. He studies the gut and the digestive system, and basically his whole thesis, based on like a ton of studies, which he all like cites in the book, is basically that the more plant fiber that we eat in terms of diversity, the healthier our gut microbiome is. So we have all of these little bugs that live in our digestive tract, and they eat fiber. The more diverse fiber that we eat, the more bugs will live in our digestive tract and will help us to like digest our food and keep us healthy. And yeah, so a lot of what he talks about in this book I implemented into my life, and I have been doing a lot better. Yeah, I really appreciated this book. Again, I think it is really well written. He's very funny, and I thought that he put everything in a very easy to understand way. He doesn't get too scientific or too technical with anything. So yeah, I think anybody could read this and understand it and enjoy it if this is something that interests you. Obviously, we all have bodies and we all eat food, so I would definitely just recommend this to like everyone, but you know, I understand that maybe not everyone would be interested in a book like this, but if you have any interest in nutrition or gut health or anything like that, that. I highly recommend this book. It was very well researched, very science-based, which is great. So yeah, this was number 4. Number 3, I have The Graveyard Book by Neil Gaiman. This copy was actually a gift from my boyfriend for Christmas. He knows how much I love Chris Riddle's illustrations, and he knew how much I loved this book this year. So he got this for me in like a little box set of other Neil Gaiman books with Chris Riddle illustrations, and like the man is just so good. I don't know how he does it. He's so good. I just really love his art style. Anyway, this was a more recent read for me. I think I read this in October, and I just really loved it. This is about like a little boy whose parents and family are murdered, and he gets adopted by these like ghosts in a graveyard to protect him from this killer who's looking for him. And so it's like about his little adventures in the graveyard and just like graveyard things, ghouls and witches and cursed jewelry. I don't know. He gets himself into trouble. I just thought it was lovely. It was a really lovely book. This is a middle grade, and I really loved it. I mean, Neil Gaiman has been a bit hit or miss for me. I read Stardust and really enjoyed it, and then I read American Gods and like kind of enjoyed it. Eventually I really had to push myself with that one. But this one I just kind of instantly fell in love with. I just thought it was really sweet. It's definitely my current Neil Gaiman favorite. Yeah, I mean, I don't have that much else to say. I think this is a great, this to me was a perfect October read. Highly recommend. Okay, so number 2 on my list is actually a short story. So I don't know if I'm cheating here, but I had to include it. This is Emergency Skin by N.K. Jemisin. So at the beginning of the year, I decided to try out Kindle Unlimited, and there are a series of short stories on Kindle Unlimited called the Forward collection, and I think this was an idea that Blake Crouch had where he contacted a bunch of his favorite fellow writers to write sci-fi stories about futuristic technology. I think was kind of the idea, and I read all 6, and some were better than others, but this was my favorite and I can't recommend it enough. I loved it so much. I've listened to it twice. So when you download the book onto your Kindle, if you also have Audible, an Audible subscription, it'll download into Audible as well. So I decided to listen to this one on audio, and I forgot who narrates it, but he does such a good job. Oh my god, he does such a good job, told in her sort of famous second person point of view, and she does it in such a clever way. I can scream. Again, I loved the narration. I just thought the social commentary was just really excellent. I don't know, it was my kind of story. So yeah, this gets the number 2 slot, and I really need to get to some more N.K. Jemisin this year. I can't believe I didn't go on to read something else of hers last year because of how much I loved that short story, but I didn't. But I'm going to this year, and I'm very excited. So yeah, if you are an N.K. Jemisin fan, I loved this. You should totally read it. Listen to the audiobook if you can, but if you can't, the short story is still great all on its own. Okay, so my number one series for 2020 was Locke and Key by Joe Hill. This series just blew me away, and I feel in part that's because I went into it with no expectations. I just had no idea what it was. The only reason I picked it up was because my parents were wanting to watch the Locke and Key Netflix show with us, me and my boyfriend, and so I was no, I really want to read the graphic novels first. So I sat down and read them, and it just won me over, man. It just won me over. I loved them. I loved them. They were so well done. The character work, there's 6 volumes of this series, and the character work is impeccable. It starts off with this very terrible trauma, and the family then moves to an old family house called Key House to kind of get away from that trauma and to heal and start over. But this Key House is magical, and it has these magical keys that the youngest boy keeps finding, and they can do these different magical things. But of course there's like an evil entity who also wants the keys to do evil things with. Yeah, I mean, it's just really good. It's just really good. Like I said, the character work is so well done. Like, I loved all of the characters, even when they were doing like bad things, right? Like, even when you were just like ripping your hair out, like, why are you doing this? Like, why are you doing that? You still just like felt the pain of their trauma, right? You just felt this heavy weight of what they'd been through, truly, like what they had really been through, and the consequences. So often writers will write something traumatic that happens, but then there aren't, and it's a catalyst, right, for things to move forward, but then we don't always deal with like the emotional stuff underneath that in a way that's like really compelling and realistic. And I thought that Joe Hill just did such a good job like exploring that pain and sadness and trauma, because it was disturbing what happened. Like, it wasn't just sad, it was also very scary. And yeah, and so like, so just for example, again, I'm gonna go into mild spoilers. If you don't want to know anything, just skip ahead a little bit. But like, for example, the mother becomes like, she becomes an alcoholic after this horrible thing, and she isn't able to be a good mom anymore because she's drinking. She can't like do the things that she should be doing as a mom, and she is just screwing up big time. It's like, on the one hand, you want to just shake her by the shoulders and be like, just stop, right? Like, why do you keep doing this? Like, why do you keep like feeding this when you know it's bad for you? But at the same time, it's like, you can't even like blame her for doing it either, because what she went through was so awful and like so painful, and like, of course you would want to numb that somehow, right? Like, of course you would want some peace. I don't know, I just thought that exploration was done really well. Again, I think all of the characters just felt really real. They felt like very real people, and I got really attached to them. I cried my eyes out at the end of the series, which it's like a horror graphic novel series. Like, you wouldn't think, but I did, I just wept. There were a lot of sacrifices in the end, which I think a lot of authors are not always willing to fully commit to. But yeah, there was a lot of sacrifice. Yeah, I mean, I could probably talk about this for hours of how much I loved I loved this series. It's great. That being said, it is very graphic. Especially, I think the first volume is probably the most graphic in terms of just like violence and, I don't know, just like disturbing stuff that happens. So if you are sensitive, if you are easily triggered, maybe don't read these, or just look up a list of trigger warnings. But yeah, I mean, I loved it. 10 out of 10. Definitely. If you are a horror fan, absolutely. If you're a Stephen King fan, you have to read them. They're so good. But don't watch the Netflix show. I mean, if you're not going to read the graphic novel series, I think it's maybe okay to watch the Netflix show, but I really hated it. I thought that it didn't do the series justice at all. It made me so angry. In fact, I've thought about doing a rant video on the series, the Netflix series, but I'd probably have to sit through it again and take notes about all the things they got wrong and how they just messed everything up. If you want to see that video, let me know. Maybe I'll make it, but yeah, Locke and Key. Okay, I have rambled so much in this video. I am so sorry. If you're still watching, thank you. I really appreciate it. Please like this video if you liked it, and subscribe if you want to see more from me. I have a second channel where I sing. I do covers and original music. If that interests you at all, I'll have it linked down below. You can check that out. Also, please follow me on Instagram. I am trying to figure out what I want to do with my Instagram currently. But yeah, it's there. You should follow me there. Thank you so much. I hope you're doing well. I hope to see you next time. Bye.